You're tuned to KSJE, Farmington, New Mexico, 90.9 FM. And now 103.3 FM, K277CR, Durango, Colorado. KSJE is supported by Music in the Mountains, a world-class classical music festival based in Durango, Colorado, offering orchestra, chamber, and world music concerts from July 11th through August 4th. This year, the concerts come to you with free mobile stage performances in the region, plus other unique venues throughout the area. Find out more about Music in the Mountains at musicinthemountains.com. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, whose vision is to deliver world-class care, making life better for the communities they are privileged to serve. Offering a comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and emergency care services so residents can live life better here. San Juan Regional Medical Center, community owned and operated, here for you.
Welcome to the Cop Shop with FPD. I'm Shanice Gonzales, the Public Information Officer, and with me is Chief Hebbe. How are you?
Very good. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir. You've been gone for the last couple of weeks. You've been busy traveling.
Yes, unfortunately. It's good to be back in Farmington again. So.
Yeah, you want to tell us about Kansas City?
Yes, I just got back from Kansas City about midweek this week. Myself and Deputy Chief Dowdy were out there, and we were presenting to a conference of FBI National Academy attendees on our May 15th shooting from last year. Something that is reasonably regularly done in our profession is we kind of present to other professionals about what our experience was and things we learned and things that went well. There were some things that went well for us, but we learned a lot out of the May 15th tragedy, and so we had a chance to present to 150 or so other law enforcement professionals, and that was in Kansas City.
And that's great. Even with like the Chiefs Association or the Future Chiefs training, we always do those kind of trainings. You just give your experience, and it's cool because Farmington feels so small compared to all the other places, but the things that we've been through, you've been able to speak experience on and be able to teach on those things.
Yeah, and we are small compared to the Miamis and even the Albuquerques of the world, but so many police departments across the nation are our size or smaller, honestly, below 100 in many instances. And so, for other chiefs from communities closer to our size to hear things that we're going through, they're able to relate better. They can't bring the resources, just like we can't, that Chicago or Miami can bring to a crisis. They're kind of scrambling just like we were. And so, usually we've had a pretty good reception to things that we've talked about that have happened here because they've either had something similar or they know they might, and they'd have approximately the same resources and experience that we do to respond to it. So they're eager to learn, okay, what did you do and how did that work and what would you do differently? And so I never mind sharing our experiences. You're right, the New and Future Chiefs training is definitely an example of it, where we do talk about the things that Farmington's faced. Here we're kind of a bigger player in New Mexico, one of the bigger departments, but we we're closer in size to the many smaller agencies like Portales and Clovis and things like that. So it was a good experience. We had a chance to attend other classes out there ourselves, so we're learning something as well. I left Tuesday to drive back so I could be back to work Wednesday, but Deputy Chief Dowdy stayed and listened to a presentation from the Department of Justice on the Uvalde shooting, which was a complete disaster, really from start to finish. And police chief is charged, and one other official is charged with crimes currently for child endangerment as a result of how that was handled. So he had a chance to listen to that, and I talked with him a little bit about some lessons that could be learned. But honestly, that thing sounds like such a mess that when you look at our May 15th and how we responded, far happier with our response.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's good for people to listen to both, and especially when you break it down, because I've done a training with you, and you have a PowerPoint and you're going through all of it from start to finish, and lessons learned and what struggles you had during that day. So I'm sure it's great to be able to compare and contrast on that. Is this the first time that you've been involved with this, or how did you kind of get involved?
So this is the first time that we've taught on this one. Dowdy is kind of big on putting us in for to be instructors in a couple of different things. So we've probably presented on 3 or 4 different topics now, a total of 5 different presentations that we've done, from the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference to this was the FBI National Academy Alumni training. We've done CALIA training. So we've taught in a variety of different forums, and then, like you said, I've also presented on the new and future chiefs for New Mexico leadership here. So we've actually done a fair amount of this.
Yeah, that's great. And then the week before that, you were down in Albuquerque or Santa Fe?
Santa Fe.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was closer to a mess than I was wishing that it would be, which Santa Fe can be sometimes. That was in preparation for and then during the special session that the governor had called related to crime. And my role as president of the New Mexico Chiefs Association led me down there. I would have been interested in it anyway, but I was playing a bigger role because of that statewide association. And, it was an interesting week. I had a chance to talk with folks in the governor's staff, talk with some of our legislators, and unbelievably, we're really kind of a one-party state right now when it comes to control of the House, control of the Senate, and control of the governor's mansion is all 3 by the Democrats. So you would have thought it would have flowed a little smoother, and there'd have been a little more, if not agreement, then ability to reach an agreement on some of this stuff. And it really just did not happen, and it was pretty clear even before I got down there, and I was down there for about 5 days. It was pretty clear before I got down there that there was a standoff between the governor's office and the legislature, and the governor has the power to call for a special session, but then the legislature has to do something, or they can walk away. And so the week was really spent meeting with people, trying to see if there was some middle ground where the Chiefs Association could wedge in some things that we think might make a difference in crime in the short term, versus waiting till January when they have a 60-day session this year. And that's a little more traditional. There'll be a lot more bills in the 60-day session. But we felt like, the governor had made this call on crime. The Attorney General, I had been part of a press conference with the AG on crime and some things that he thought that we could do as a state right now to make some improvements. I was hoping that we could, take some of what the governor was saying, some of what the legislature was saying, some of what the Attorney General was saying, and we could come up with a few bills that would make a difference. The governor's office was pretty set on, they had 3 real, but then they added a couple of other ones, including some funding for Ruidoso in the wake of that fire and the flooding that followed. But there wasn't much counter that I saw from the legislature, and any discussions I had with the legislators, it was, we'll see you in the fall at some of the subcommittee meetings, or we'll see you in the 60-day session. There wasn't a lot of comeback from the legislature about here's some things that we are proposing to do to address crime. So really it was a frustrating and disappointing 5 days down there. And really it was how toxic it is, even intra-party, like I'm saying. It's all the Democrats that are controlling all these things. But within a day or two of the legislature, they met on a Thursday, and by the end of Thursday, they closed out the session. The session didn't even start till noon. So by the end of Thursday, they closed out and they went home. They did not take action on any of the governor's bills. So, or any other bill related to crime. So within a day or two of that, the Albuquerque Journal came out with really a very scathing editorial, saying essentially the legislature cares more about criminals than their victims. Listed a long string of groups that were supporting the legislature's call on the governor not to hold the special session. All of those groups were contributors to, according to the Albuquerque Journal, contributors to various campaigns among the legislature. So they have some influence. They're donating to those campaigns. And then they were opposed to anything dealing with crime. Or in the case of one of the bills from the governor's office, it was also dealing with competency, which is if somebody commits a crime and they're found to be mentally incompetent. Right now in New Mexico, essentially what happens is they're just released. And if they commit future crimes, they continue to be released and don't face consequences. The charges are dropped because they're not mentally competent. There isn't a system right now in New Mexico to have them go into treatment, become competent, and then go about their trial. So get them back to competence and then hold them accountable. So right now there just isn't a vehicle to do that, but the legislature even opposed that. So it was a frustrating 5 days, and I felt like this was a failure for the citizens of New Mexico. And really, I don't care which side you're on in the discussion. If you supported the governor, if you support the legislature's views on crime, I think pretty universally people are saying crime is a significant threat here in New Mexico right now. It's one of the top 3 or 4 that you see in polls of citizens' interest and fears is what are we doing about crime? And we walked away from this session and we did nothing. So it was disappointing.
What were the other bills that got proposed? The mental competency one?
That was one. There was a felon in possession one, where the governor's office wanted to increase the penalties for a felon to be in possession of a gun. Right now, I think the sentence is at most 3 years, and I think the governor was proposing a significant increase in that. And then there was a bill aimed at, the governor's office described it as aimed at pedestrian safety and getting people off the medians. You see people in Albuquerque holding signs up begging for cash. And she wanted to get rid of that and do something more with homelessness. And so it was a bill kind of to target some of the actions of homeless people that is causing problems for business owners, and we've had that even here in Farmington. We've talked about it became described as a panhandling bill. That became the moniker that was attached to it, but really it was a broader bill than that. It was attempting to deal with the homeless crisis in New Mexico, and that did not receive much traction either.
And I would recommend people to look up the press conference because I felt like it was well organized and the state leaders were picked and spoke well on their issues. We had mayors, we had we had lots of other people speak about things. And as far as law enforcement goes, they went and talked about the 3 officer-involved shootings that happened this year where officers were fatally wounded. So we talked about the Las Cruces one where it was a felon in possession where Jeremy Smith had lost his life. There's the one where a felon, Amando Silva, was convicted of violent crimes. He was without a home and known to have mental health issues. And again, another officer lost his life. And then even with the Bo Wilson, 2 officers were shot. And he had known to have mental health issues. And then we had the May 15th shooting that you also spoke about. Yeah.
So the Las Cruces one was the subject who had a knife and essentially attacked the officers, one of their homeless population from Las Cruces, who they knew, I think, and it's just a trespass call that the officer's going to, and he's attacked and fatally stabbed and in just a horrific attack. That was very early in the year. And then the state police officer was attacked. He's pulling up to help somebody on the highway, he thinks, and it turns out that suspect had murdered a woman in South Carolina and made his way in a stolen vehicle over here, and he just pulled out a gun and just shot the officer. So, from my perspective, that was one of the things that I was talking about, is we're a pretty small state when you look at our population, and within the first 3 months or so of this year, we had 2 fatal police encounters where police officers were killed. Last year, I think it was 3, if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely 2. And that attacks on police officers in New Mexico should be something we can all kind of get around. That we've got to stop those. They cannot be tolerated in our state. And when you start looking at the numbers problem that we have of getting people to be police officers and staying police officers, and then when we're seeing attacks on police, we have to be able to respond together with a unified voice. Last year, on our May 15th shooting, it was Bo Wilson shot 2 police officers in the course of that event, 2 responding officers. So, and when you look at that one, and like I talked about from Kansas City, the response of the FPD officers, how quickly they moved to attack a suspect who had already killed 3 women and shot up the community as you walk down the street, versus Uvalde, where they just sat outside and basically it was over an hour and 10 minutes. They did not do anything to attack the suspect there. Well, the downside to attacking from the officer's perspective is 2 of them were shot. So what we should as a state, and I really would expect our legislatures, our governor's office to be supportive of. We cannot have tolerance for police officers being attacked or police officers being shot, and to me those are no-brainers. Maybe it wouldn't make a massive amount of difference to the overall crime total, but it certainly sends a message to police officers across the state that we actually are with you, we actually have your back. We expect the highest performance from you, but we're going to back you when you face circumstances like that. And the fact that we couldn't even get to stuff like that is really what I'm saying. It was just a disappointment. Forget even what the governor's proposed bills were. You can't tell me that there aren't other things that we could have done as a state to send some signals that we are taking this crime wave that we're facing much more seriously than we have previously. And when I was dealing with the Attorney General, he was doing a town hall. And then I went to a second town hall with some of our legislators, organized by the media down in Albuquerque. And the media themselves are describing crime as out of control. And so, where is that for us when the media is ahead saying crime is a significant problem? And then to walk away and not get anything done, I was discouraged with that.
And I'm glad that you brought up the point with Elias Buck and his sentencing during all of that, because I think that it shed a lot of light, if you want to talk a little bit about that and how we were able to change how we sentenced him.
Sure. So, the governor's bill, again, whether you agree with it or not, I can't even tell you I've read all of it or listened to the discussion one way or the other, because frankly there wasn't a lot of discussion on the bill, and I would have been interested in it. But whether you support it or not, unarguably, here's where we are as a state versus where the federal system is. So Elias Buck is the suspect who shot our first officer in over 30 years that was shot, and that was Joseph Barreto a couple of years ago. And as we approached going to trial, we had 2 charging decisions, right? He's a felon. He'd escaped from jail in Colorado and come down, armed himself, and then shoots the officer from almost point-blank range when he's confronted. And the officer, it wasn't confronting him over being an escaped prisoner. It was part of a DUI investigation where he fled from the car. So the officer is shot. We have, on the one hand, he's a felon in possession, and on the other hand, he arguably attempted to murder a police officer. And we had a longer sentence going with the federal felon in possession than we were going to get with the aggravated assault on a police officer charge. It was an easier case to make, and we knew that we were going to get a longer sentence if we went this direction than arguably we might have gotten if everything went well with with the state charge. And that's, that should be alarming to every New Mexican. The felon in possession law is so strict with the federal government. They do not want people like Buck using firearms. They don't want them around them. Whatever they're doing, drugs, the theft, whatever the crime is, from the federal perspective, they do not want them to be armed with handguns when they're doing them. We should all support that. I don't mind people having guns. I mind bad guys having guns. And in this case, there's a bad guy with a long history of being a bad guy who then shot a police officer, nearly killed him. So the fact that the best we could get is a felon in possession charge under the federal system, the state system, a max of 3 years for being a felon in possession, and he got, I think, a 10-year sentence with the federals. Charge that should be alarming to us, and also sends a message to all of law enforcement. If you're considering being a police officer here or a police officer in Texas, Arizona, Colorado, you certainly are looking at what is the level of support that you receive, and when attacks on police officers are not viewed as critical, that sends a message, no doubt.
Do you want to talk about how we put together the mental health unit and the motivations behind that, or the community meeting that we had that talks about our crime trends?
Yeah, I think we're nearing the end, actually, so we'll probably save some of that for a different day. I think we've got a couple of things coming up let's talk about that. We've got, right now we're in the middle of a citation blitz. We've got our academy graduates that are out. They're preparing for FTO, and as they're going about their preparations, we're having them out on the street, working with their field training officers, focusing on traffic. And Farmington has had, not unlike other agencies around the state, has faced a lot of fatalities, a lot of critical injury crashes. And we are trying very hard to get speeds down and get driving away from the reckless nature that I think all of us have seen and experienced over the last few years. And so our officers were out a lot this week writing citations. This is an urge to all of you. We should be slowing down. We should be taking care because the officers are out there and we are writing tickets. And I was pleased with the results this week.
Yeah, yesterday on 30th and Sullivan, we issued 130 citations and got 1 arrest. And then we also have the traffic unit that's in full force right now that I've also done postings on.
Yeah.
And so we are out there, and just watch your speed, slow down, follow all of the traffic laws.
Yes. And then we also have the mighty Connie Mack returning. And I think this is KSJE's crown jewel, second, of course, to the cop shop. But the mighty KSJE. Scott, are you doing all the play-by-play work? Are you?
I will not be. We hire professionals to do that.
Yeah. As opposed to you.
As opposed to me.
Who's an extreme professional.
Well, not with baseball, though.
I may not even tune in now if Scott's not going to be on the radio.
Please do.
So Connie Mack is back in town, and that's always a big event for us. And we're nearing the final month here of summer. School's back in by mid-August.
3 weeks, yeah. My daughter starts on the 7th.
Like, holy, the 7th.
The 7th.
Good gravy.
I know.
That's earlier than, what the heck? I did not go to school that early, and I regret that they do. But we also have football back in session. The Mighty Pack is back on the field, although Jordan Love isn't signed, so he's not playing. And that's a little alarming to me. But other than that, I think in the coming weeks we'll be talking about preseason football, which Shanice loves, and she can get away from the softball that seems to just bog her down and depress her. We're going to talk football, and that just uplifts everybody. So, are you ready for some football?
I'm ready. You guys can talk for the full 30 minutes, and it is my favorite thing. I just sit here.
I think you're going to actually break down the games.
Chiefs. Yeah, I'm like, yes, exactly what the Chiefs said. He's absolutely right about every little play and every person who's playing. Yes, I agree.
It continues to be a struggle to bring Shanice along, but I'm trying. So we'll see you again here in a couple of weeks. Have a good summer. Get out and enjoy Connie Mack, and we'll see you soon here on the Cop Shop with FPD. Thank you.